We give you our 3 best bets of Week 5 in college football, and it all starts right now. What's up, Grandstand Bettors family? It's Matt from GrandstandBettors.com, and we're back with our college football plays for Week 5. We'll get to those in just a moment, but first, if you're new to our channel, make sure you go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our free picks, predictions, and contests throughout the year. And while you're at it, smash that like button if you are excited for some more fun-filled Saturday with some top 25 matchups. I know we are. So, without further ado, let's dive into Week 5 of college football. And let's start off with number 7 Kentucky versus number 14 Mississippi in the noon Eastern time slot. And Mississippi 6.5 point favorites here at the moment. Over-under is set at 53.5 points. And the Kentucky Wildcats have started the season off strong once again. They are currently 4-0, and after a 26-16 victory in the Swamp against Florida, the biggest part of their success by far this season is in their passing attack. Quarterback Will Levis has 1,185 passing yards with 10 touchdowns through 4 games this season. He has connected with 14 different receivers, 3 of which have over 200 receiving yards, and most frequently, the star wideout Tavion Robinson has accounted for 349 of those receiving yards, with a solid rushing attack as well behind Smoke, who's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. The Wildcats offense has the weapons and depth to be a big problem here for Mississippi's defense. Now, the Wildcats defense, they have also been a huge part of the success for Kentucky this season. They're 12th best in FBS with 253 total yards given up per contest, thanks to a very solid linebacker group and a secondary that only gives up 163 passing yards per game. They've also held their opponents to only 13 points per game this season. Now, their run defense, also ranked 32nd in the nation, has really helped them control the pace of their game against their opponents. But on the other side of the football, you have Mississippi. And Mississippi has also started 4-0 and are putting up very similar numbers to Kentucky. They also have a solid passing attack like the Wildcats, averaging 207 yards per game. But where they definitely have the edge over the Wildcats is in their rushing attack. Kentucky is only averaging 81 yards per game on the ground, while Mississippi's putting up 280 yards per game. Running backs Judkins and Evans have put up 794 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns combined already this season. They're also both averaging 6 yards per carry, and although the Wildcats' front 7 is good, it's going to be a very good test to see if they have what it takes to stick with a better team here in the SEC. Now, the Mississippi defense in particular, their secondary has also been strong for them this season. They're only giving up 193 passing yards per game. In fact, they're actually giving up more rushing yards per game than passing. And they're ranked 6th overall in college football, only giving up 10 points per game. So, what is our best bet here in this SEC Showdown Saturday? Well, it's going to be a good test for both teams, and the difference maker in this matchup will certainly be on the defensive side of the ball. The Wildcats, they're 3-1 against the spread this season, and although it's going to be very tough for them to win this game on their own, we like their chances of keeping this game close within one score, especially when you factor in how disciplined they are as a football team. They take very few penalties. So, with our first bet of Week 5 in college football, we're going to take the Kentucky Wildcats plus 6.5 over Mississippi. Now, with our second game this Saturday, we're going to look at number 9 Oklahoma versus number 16 Baylor in the 3:30 Eastern time slot. And the Baylor Bears, they're favored by 2.5 points. The over-under set at 56.5. Oklahoma State, coming into this matchup 3-0 on the season, are fresh off a bye week from last Saturday. They have beat every team this season by 14 points or more, and they're averaging 51.7 points per game. Offense has been the name of the game this season, and quarterback Spencer Sanders has looked phenomenal so far. Through 3 games, he's put up 916 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and only throwing 1 interception. Wide receiver Braden Johnson has been his favorite target with over 300 receiving yards, but they also have 3 other receivers with over 100 receiving yards, which makes it a very hard wide receiver core to defend. Now, the run game seems to have taken a little bit of a step back this year after losing Jalen Warren to the NFL. Dominic Richardson has taken over the rushing attack, and although he has put up 200 rushing yards and a couple touchdowns, it's still not the same level of production they got last season. Now, the Cowboys have also dropped off quite a bit defensively. They went from having the third-ranked defense overall that gave up only 89 rushing yards and 16 points per game last season to 74th overall, giving up almost 23 points per game. Now, the worst part about that is it's been against teams like Central Michigan, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Arizona State. Hopefully, they figured some things out during their off week because they're going to have to be able to shut down a very good Baylor offense this week. And speaking of Baylor, they're 3-1 on the season, with their only loss coming to BYU, which ended in double overtime. They're coming off a nice win against Iowa State last week, which was the first time they have beat them on the road since 2016. A lot of credit for that win can be given to their offense. On the ground, they're led by Richard Reese, who already has 315 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Quarterback Blake Shapen is also having a solid season, but the Bears do not really have any standout wide receivers. Their leading receiver only has 157 yards this season. Who cares how good their receivers are, because their rushing attack has been phenomenal. Now, just like Oklahoma State, though, Baylor's defense has not looked as good as they were in 2021. Against the two good opponents they have played this season, they gave up 25 points per game and over 700 yards combined. Although their run defense has only given up 79 yards per game, their secondary has been awful, giving up 225 yards per game. Now, despite that poor secondary, the Bears do have a very good front seven, which has 10 sacks this season already. And if they can generate some pressure and force Sanders out of the pocket, that should help them out and slow down that Oklahoma State Cowboys offense. So, what is our best bet in this matchup? Well, with the way both these defenses have regressed this season so far, we have a hard time seeing this game be a defensive battle like it has been the past few meetings. Combine these offenses, they're putting up 92 points per game. They do like to do a lot of hurry-up offense and are both averaging over 70 plays per game. In addition, with Baylor's rushing attack going against a weaker Oklahoma State front seven and the Cowboys' heavy passing attack going up against a Baylor secondary that's a little weaker, we think that the offenses are going to thrive this weekend. So, with our second best bet of Saturday in college football week number 5, we're going to take Oklahoma State Baylor over 56.5 points. Now, before we get to our third and final best bet of week number 5, just a reminder, if you want our full card of college football and NFL plays, head on over to grandstandbettors.com and become part of our family. But as we mentioned, we have one more best bet for this week, and it's yet another top 25 matchup, this one in primetime at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, between number 5 Clemson Tigers and the number 10 NC State Wolfpack. Clemson a 6.5 point favorite here. The over-under is 42.5. NC State Wolfpack, again, boasting a very solid defense this season. They're coming into this one 4-0, ranked 10th in the country. Although they have not had the toughest schedule this season, they are beating their opponents by an average of 25 points per game and have also jumped to the next level offensively when compared to last season. They're putting up 411 yards per game and 36 points per game behind a very good rushing attack and an efficient passing game. Demi Sumo Karnbe leads the way for them on the ground with 252 rushing yards this season at 6.5 yards per carry, and he also has 4 total touchdowns. Devin Leary has been very efficient at quarterback too. He's thrown for 900 yards through 4 games with a 64% completion rate. He also has 9 passing touchdowns to 8 different receivers, which just shows you how well he can distribute the ball across the field. Another big factor for this team has been definitely their defense. They rank 13th overall, has only given up 47 points the entire season. Although their secondary has been phenomenal, only giving up 179 passing yards per game, their front seven has performed even better, ranking 10th in college football, only giving up 81 rushing yards per game. As long as they maintain that level of play throughout the season, this team should easily finish inside the top 10 of college football. On the other side of the field, the Clemson Tigers have bounced back nicely since last season's poor showing. They've started this season off 4-0 after a narrow victory against Wake Forest last Saturday in double overtime. DJ Uiagalelei has looked much better this season, already throwing the ball for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. With guys like Bo Collins and Joseph Nada at wide receiver, teams have to drop guys back in coverage to stop that Tigers passing attack. Only problem with that is Clemson has a very speedy back in Will Shipley who can turn that corner quickly and accelerate into the secondary with a full head of steam. He's very hard to tackle in the open field, and the dynamic that Shipley brings to this offense has made them hard to stop as they're putting up 43.8 points per game and 458 total yards per game. Now, on the other side of the ball with Clemson's defense, that is a whole nother story. After a solid start to the season in their first 2 weeks, the Tigers' defense has since given up 65 points, 764 yards, and have committed 15 penalties, totaling for 180 penalty yards. Last week alone, they had 7 pass interference calls against them as their secondary got torched by the Demon Deacons. Their run defense, they have done well this season, though, only giving up 79 yards per game, but they can't figure out their problems with their secondary. Clemson is not going to be ranked number 5 in the nation for much longer. So, what is our best bet in this one for this primetime matchup? Well, we were tempted to take the Wolfpack to cover the spread on this one, but we're going to pass at the moment. Who knows? Maybe that one will end up on our full card. The over-under, though, is set at 42.5 at the moment, and these teams combine right now for 79 points per game. Even in last year's game, which was more of a defensive battle, they scored 48 points in their matchup. We get that NC State has a good defense, but Clemson still has a ton of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. And the Wolfpack should have no problem shredding their secondary, just like Wake Forest did last week. So, with our last pick for week number 5 in college football, we're going to take NC State and Clemson over 42.5 points. Well, that is it for us here at Grandstand Bettors. As always, sit back, relax, enjoy week number 5 of college football, and we'll see you right back here, same time, same place, next week.